And you've been pretty outspoken about this, Nazir, and understandably, perhaps, from the perspective of all victims of child sex abuse. Tell me why.
James, absolutely right. Well, the Prince has spent the last 2 years victim blaming. He's been saying that victims are lying. I reference to Virginia Giuffre, but more readily than that, he was saying that they have false memories. These are the kinds of things that I've heard over the years from people who are working on behalf of predators in relation to people who've been traumatized by the most horrific abuse. And, he thinks that by simply saying, I'm sorry, that deals with it. I know of, I'm afraid, far too many victims who will not accept the apology, who've been re-traumatized by the whole experience.
Re-traumatized because it's an echo of their own experiences, of being told, but not being believed and being told that they were liars. Or even 2 days ago, I was reading that Andrew's lawyers were asking for the original copy of that photograph, as if, and obviously the implication being that it had somehow been faked or photoshopped.
Forgeries, made up, all of that. They've heard that. We also have to remember, we have a 1% conviction rate for rape in this country. Yeah. So 99% of reports never get anywhere near a courtroom. So people are extraordinarily courageous if they come forward, extraordinarily courageous if they give evidence. They then suffer this constant refrain that you're making it up, you're lying, you're mentally ill, whatever it may be. And they will have heard what's been said very publicly over the last 2 years by the Prince, and his legal team, which will have reminded them of what they have gone through and will have deterred many others from coming forward. That's why I'm angry. I'm angry because it's a struggle to encourage and support victims to come forward. And so many of them have chosen not to because of what they've understood to be the experience of those who end up giving evidence. And just simply saying, I'm sorry, is not good enough. And you've got to also ask yourself this question. He regrets his association with Jeffrey Epstein. He didn't mention anything about his association with Ghislaine Maxwell, another convicted sex trafficker. One is unfortunate, two is a bit careless. I think you've got to ask yourself this question: does having money, does having power mean that you can escape any form of justice? And I think that is a question that I'm sure is on the lips of pretty much all of your listeners right now.
Well, it is a very, well, I hope it is, and if it wasn't before, it will be now. Because if he didn't have access to this sort of cash, what would be happening to him now?
There would be a hearing later in the summer.
And would he have to be there? Would he have to attend?
Well, he didn't have to be there. If he doesn't turn up, then she gets judgment by default.
Right.
She wins.
Right.
He has to either present a defence or not, as the case may be.
Yes.
And he would have done that. And we just learned a few minutes ago. Apparently, Prince Charles persuaded him persuaded him to settle.
Right.
So even now, we're getting impression or evidence suggesting that he's never really wanted to stop this case from going ahead. He wanted to carry on. He used every technicality in the book, James, to try and get this case kicked out. Lost every legal argument. Had only one option now, which was to give evidence or not defend the claim, and then ends up paying an enormous amount of money in order to prevent that day in court, which I think damages justice, it damages victims, it damages survivors. It makes us think that power, money, still gives you enormous privilege.
You mentioned your anger, so I'll mention mine briefly. And it partly sprang, somewhat surprisingly this morning, from the realisation, I think probably for me belatedly, that what Jeffrey Epstein presided over was the jet-set equivalent of the kind of grooming gangs that you prosecuted.
100%. Well, it's exactly the same process. The manipulation of very vulnerable people, getting them involved in low-level criminality, making them feel that they are special, giving them warmth, allegedly giving them things that they think they need, trapping them, then abusing them, and then passing them around as if they were absolutely nothing. And, I don't care whether you are the richest person in the world or the poorest person in the world. That's not on. And we've got, sadly, a situation where people feel that they can do this with impunity. And the other thing that needs to be said, James, is where is the Metropolitan Police on all of this? Because in 2015, Virginia Giuffre made a complaint to the police. They told her then there was no case to answer. They told her again in 2019 there was no case to answer. In 2021, she was told again, there there's no case to answer. It's for the FBI to deal with. And then, of course, we have Prince Andrew saying he will cooperate with the FBI and didn't do so.
Ran a mile.
There was still an outstanding criminal investigation. What happens to that? Well, that's entirely a matter for the police. But the fact that they have dragged their heels over the last 6 or 7 years doesn't fill me with great confidence.